You know, they say the most famous sports quote in Canadian history was done not by a boxer, a football player, a baseball player, but the infamous goalie of the Montreal Canadiens, the biggest money goalie ever. In relation to the 72 Summit Series, he said with the Russians, Canada kind of took them lightly, and he said you should never underestimate your opponent. Now, how did that apply to the boxing podcast we're doing on this gentleman? I underrated him, the media underrated him, the fans underrated him. He ended up being world middleweight champion because he didn't underrate himself. And when he became champion, he had such a legacy, he turned that into a performing career where he has done various roles with distinction upon retirement. So today we're going to be talking about the world champion of renown, Vito Antuofermo. Now, Vito Antuofermo, again, currently an Italian-American actor and former professional boxer. He reigned as one of the last undisputed world middleweight champions back in the late 1970s, early 80s. Now, Antuofermo was born in Italy in the town of Palo del Colle, about 15 kilometers inland from the city of Bari. His family moved to the United States when he was 17. He learned how to fight in the tough areas of New York City, which is a given, but by his teens he had made up his mind that he wanted to be a professional boxer. Now, the Howard Beach, Queens native won the 1970 147 or welterweight New York Golden Gloves championship, defeating Thomas Chestnut in the finals. In 71, Antuofermo was defeated by future light heavyweight champion Eddie Gregory and Mustafa Muhammad in the finals of the 147-pound open division. Antuofermo trained at the Police Athletic League Sweeney Center in Brooklyn. Now, having an orthodox stance worked to his advantage because he could take a lot of punishment, but this is the problem that we came in. He had a propensity, just like Henry Cooper, to cut easily, especially around the eyebrows. Now, in between rounds in these fights, as much attention, if not more, was given to Vito patching up cuts on his face, as it would giving him advice and instructions from his, handlers. Now, after a series of big wins, Antuofermo became world middleweight champion by defeating the very, very unheralded Hugo Coro, a terrible champion, by a decision in 15 rounds at Monte Carlo. Coro had won a disputed decision to replace Carlos Monzon, who had retired. Now, according to an article in Ring Magazine, Howard Cosell, the blowhard from ABC, was working in that fight's live broadcast in USA, was telling viewers that Coro was, in his opinion, way ahead on the judges' cards. When someone on the American television crew found out it was Antuofermo who was actually leading on the cards, because Cosell then began to say he had Antuofermo ahead. All three judges' scorecards were very close, each showing a tight 1-point margin. Split decision, 143-142 and 165-145 in Antuofermo's favor, and 146-145 in Coro's favor. Now, ladies and gentlemen, back in the day, these were 15-round fights with the 10-point must system. If it was a draw, it was 10-10. If the lost a round, it was 10-9. But it was the excessive punishment in a round, it could be 10-8 or 10-7. So you can see how close it was. 8-7 and 2-5, 4, and 5s. Now, on the morning after winning the title, Antuofermo and his crew were driving to a small vacation spot in Italy when he saw a car fly off a bridge under which they were passing. The car landed in front of his, but the accident did not injure any occupants in Antuofermo's car. Suffering from shock, he kept driving and never found out what happened to the occupants of that car. He came back to his senses about 20 minutes later. Now, on November 30th, 1979, in a nationally televised fight on ABC, he defended his title against the stellar, marvelous Marvin Hagler. Now, Marvin Hagler had been the undefeated world champion, or people's champion, for a number of years, coming from Philadelphia, beating all the top contenders there, and finally getting a shot. I didn't think Antuofermo was going to win the fight, and I was right, but I wasn't right in the way I wanted to be right. The fight resulted in a controversial 15-round draw. Judge Dwayne Ford scored a bout in Hagler's favor, 145-141. Judge Dalby Shirley scored for Antuofermo, 144-142. And Judge Hal Miller had it even at 143, or 7-7-1. The draw enabled Antuofermo to retain his title. In his next defense against the strong Alan Minter, also in LA, he lost the title by a 15-round split decision. Some people thought Antuofermo had won the fight. Now, the bout featured a wild disparity in scoring, with a Venezuelan judge scoring the fight for Antuofermo, while a British judge had Minter winning 13 to 15 rounds. They had a rematch in London some 6 months later, and Minter... not 6 months. 6 months later, a few months later, Minter retained the crown by a TKO on cuts again under Antuofermo's eyes in 8 rounds. Now, Antuofermo kept fighting and winning, and after Hagler won the title from Minter in 1980, he was given another chance to regain the world title. In front of a HBO boxing audience and a full house of Hagler's native Boston guard, Antuofermo this time lost by a TKO again on cuts in the 4th round. Now, after several attempts at becoming a top middleweight again, he retired from boxing in 1985. Apart from Coro, other boxers he knocked off included world champions Eckert Daga, Denny Moyer, and of course the great Emil Griffin. Now, after retirement, Antuofermo began to pursue an acting career, most notably when he landed a small role in The Godfather Part 3 as the chief bodyguard of gangster Joey Zaza, played by Joe Mantegna. And he gave a very good performance in that as a novice. He has landed several small speaking roles in movies and television since, including The Sopranos as, of course, a mobster. He also done many theater plays. He's also done television commercials for Old Spice. Antuofermo's final record, 57-2 with 21 by knockout. Now Vito Antuofermo's second oldest son, Pasquale Antuofermo, has fought on the amateur level. And Antuofermo also has a landscaping company that he operates in Long Island. Now, again, other performances, including, again, Goodfellas, Loser, New York Undercover, The Mouse, Hell Kitchen, La Bamba, and The Boys Behind the Desk. His final fight, of course, was a RTD loss to Matthew Hilton at the Montreal Forum in 1985. We're going to talk about our great Canadian world champion in a future podcast. But, he had some decent fights, but, the problems over the eyes. But talking about these victories, again, we're talking about Philadelphia. He knocked off Willie Klassen, Willie Warren, Benny Briscoe, Maurice Hope, a very, very strong fighter. And he also was the super welterweight champion of Europe for a short while because he knocked off Eckert Daga for the title in 1976 because he could cross over. He could be an American champion and a Italian champion because of dual citizenship. Now, the unified title at the time, ladies and gentlemen, was not IBF. It was WBA, WBC, and the Ring. Now, again, some strong performances. He would often fight out of Madison Square Garden and the Felt Forum, and at the Felt Forum at the time had a lot of big followers. But what is kind of bizarre at Antuofermo, ladies and gentlemen, if he wouldn't have had such bad eyes, he could probably been a better performer. Now, I think he did surgery at least once or twice, and it didn't really take. But it didn't. He was very tough as nails. I underrated him. The media underrated him. We all did. But you can't take it away from him. He helped reignite the middleweight division before, of course, Hagler and Duran and all these other fighters moved up. But, I mean, the rivalry between him and Minter and Hagler allowed some excitement in the middleweight division before, again, it expanded. But I know this, Antuofermo was no coward in the ring. He took some awful punishment, especially when his eyes were bad. And that Hagler fight, I watched that from start to finish. I had it as a draw. And I was shocked because maybe Hagler took him too lightly. I don't know. Marvin, look what he did with Duran. He almost chopped his head off in 15 rounds. Maybe it was over the hill when he fought Antuofermo because, the Leonard loss ties in directly to that draw to Antuofermo. Maybe he entered the Leonard fight thinking, well, I did bad against Antuofermo. No pun intended. It's a clash of styles. Hagler and Antuofermo had two different styles. because Hagler was an inside fighter that would cut you apart. But if Antuofermo doesn't go down, you could punch yourself out in 1 round or 2 rounds, and the other guy counter punches, which he was. But but a Hugo Coro there, ladies and gentlemen, terrible middleweight champion. But you fight who's in front of you. Yvonne Durrell told me that once. No joke. Former superstar boxer. You fight the ones in front of you. I think that sums it up. So that's a legend of Vito Antuofermo. If anybody likes to give me a like, comment, or subscribe on future vintage boxing podcasts you'd like to see, we're going to have Matthew Hilton and some other Canadians coming up. And keep punching and stay tuned. Bye.